Hey, welcome back to Anti-King. Today, we're covering everyone's favorite, Rob Zombie. You know it's a Rob Zombie movie by the trashy aesthetic, and the fact that, there's his wife again. I have defended Rob Zombie movies for years, and people act like I'm crazy. Is it because I've done so loudly at weddings I wasn't invited to? Yeah, maybe. No, but really, Rob Zombie movies all kind of received the same criticisms. Unlikable characters, white trash aesthetic, and his hot wife's butt. And I get it, they all kind of run together, and I'm sure for a lot of people those vulgar performances are grating, but honestly, I like that dish. There's a grungy feel to his films that I really enjoy. And to top that off, they always feature a bunch of gory practical effects, and you know how much I love that. This one's different. The Lords of Salem, while certainly graphic and disturbing, breaks the cycle of evil people doing evil things, typical in Rob Zombie movies, in favor of a more supernatural element. That's not to say that he turned House of a Thousand Corpses into Haunting on Hill House. This is not PG-13 horror. This is unrated, chaotic pandemonium. It was also the third movie made for the production company Haunted Movies, which would later become Blumhouse, which is responsible for recent horror classics like Freaky and Happy Death Day and Get Out, as well as some fantastic remakes/reboots with the recent Halloween series and The Invisible Man. Who would have thought directors like Jordan Peele and James Wan and Lee Whannell would have this weird connection to Rob Zombie? He walked so that they could run. He digged through the ditches so that they could burn through the witches. Speaking of witches, this movie's about a coven. Well, it's about a radio host who plays a cursed song that brings a coven back, or let's just dive into it. The movie begins with a coven of dirty old witches chanting their loyalties to Satan before we cut to Sherry Moon Zombie's butt. I guess Zombie wanted to get his bragging out of the way early with this one, I don't know. She's waking up and rolling out of bed, and on her way out, she runs into her landlord. Heidi, who is Sherry Moon's character, remarks how she notices she finally rented the dreaded apartment number 5. The landlord says that she didn't, and that no matter what she does, she can't seem to find a tenant. Heidi tells her she definitely saw someone there, and even said hi. The landlord says she'll look into it right before a white person makeout sesh with her dog. We flash to a commercial for WIQZ and the Big H team. Which includes our protagonist Heidi, as well as Herman Salvador and Herman Jackson, played by horror legend Ken Foree. Heidi is a DJ in none other than Salem, Massachusetts. Oh, that's where the witches are. It's a classic shock rock station with toilet humor to boot. They receive a mysterious wooden package containing a vinyl record from a band called The Lords. Before long, we see Heidi being walked home by Herman S., and they spend the night together. While asleep, something from apartment 5 beckons Herman, and he wakes up to put on the record. And not to be a music snob or anything, but this band sucks. No, but I do remember reading about this movie before it came up and wondering how they were going to do the musical part. Like, what could they possibly do for the music? So I was a little bummed when it was just kind of like a 3-note orchestral thing. But also, like, what else could it be? I don't know what I was expecting.
I don't know what I expected.
And while I'm not a fan, Heidi certainly is, as she starts holding her head and seeing all kinds of witchy visions as a voiceover pronounces their love for Lucifer. Aw, finally a nice family film. That ends rather quickly, though, as the vision shifts to a woman giving birth. She's ritualistically stabbed as she gives birth to a boy, who the oldest witch starts spitting on and cursing profusely. Guess she's not a kid person. Heidi snaps to and complains of being super tired. Herman says he'll leave, and Heidi tells him to crash on the couch. We get more of apartment 5's creepy beckoning before Heidi heads to bed and, creepy naked witch lady, and it's Tuesday. I've always wanted to see one of these movies that put like special emphasis on what day it is, show just like a normal day. Am I supposed to be... Some days are plot-driven, some days you're just eating a sandwich. Anyways, we cut to a sober support meeting where a recovering addict struggles openly with his imposter syndrome while Heidi takes it all in. We cut back to the H team where Herman J is debating the restraints of his new non-dairy, vegan, gluten-free diet.
Do you even know what gluten-free is?
Of course.
I just saw you eat a grilled cheese 5 minutes ago.
Sandwiches don't count.
God, I love Ken Foree.
Anyway,
the H team is interviewing Frances Matthias, who's recently written a book about the Salem witch trials. Heidi asks if there are any witches still currently living in Salem, and Frances tells her no, but that there is still a thriving Wiccan community, and that witchcraft is fake and brought on by a delusional mind. With a line like that, you can pretty much take it to the bank that he will be killed by some kind of witchcraftery later. That's the Anti-King guarantee. We cut to a pizza place and a woman in her bathroom where they're both currently listening to the team's radio broadcast. It's now time for a segment the show calls Smash or Trash. And as you've probably put together by now, Heidi's about to play that creepy record she got in the mail by the Lords. The music is some kind of call to arms to all the descendants of witches still living in Salem, including one particularly busty lady peeing on herself in the bathroom. Come on, the toilet's right there! Matthias asks where the record came from, and is intrigued by the fact it was sent specifically to Heidi. He takes that intrigue home to the wife as he exits stage right. On Heidi's way up to her apartment, she's stopped by her landlady person again who wants her to meet her friends. And this is something I feel the movie gets wrong, which is portraying this landlord as a witch, when we all know landlords are vampires. Zing! Anyways, she agrees to sit with them, but first has to feed her dog Troy, where she somehow looks right past yet another creepy naked witch. Back downstairs, she has some wine with the women before learning that one of them, Megan, is a palm reader. Heidi expresses skepticism over the practice, which of course means Megan will be doing a reading. Megan tells Heidi she will succumb to her darkest of sexual desires, which weirds Heidi out, understandably, and she heads to bed as we see flashes of a ghostly figure. Seriously, this movie has a lot going on. Troy starts acting weird, scratching and whining at apartment 5 before eventually the door cracks open and a red light beckons Heidi towards it. Entranced, she stands in the doorway for a moment before gravitating towards the light source, a neon cross on the wall. She stands in awe of it shortly before exiting seemingly transformed, as disembodied whispers fill the empty space. Soon, another witchy apparition appears, demanding Heidi quote-unquote bleed us a king. Jesus! Speaking of Jesus, Heidi decides the next day to visit a priest at a large cathedral in a beautifully shot scene to try and make some sense of the vision she had encountered. Before I go any further, this is where the trigger warning starts. Maybe click off the video or just skip ahead about a minute because I am going to dive into this for a second. I've got some pretty big criticisms. But yeah, what I mentioned at the start of the video, trigger warning is about to start nowish. Alright, here's another criticism of Rob Zombie's movies that I completely agree with, and that's the amount of sexual violence in each. I get that it's horrifying and hard to look at, and that's kind of the vibe that Rob Zombie movies are going for, but honestly, this is just lazy and gratuitous and unnecessary. This scene is a fantastic example of that, as the priest, instead of comforting her, assaults her while telling her she needs to profess her love for Satan, before Heidi comes to and realizes it's just a vision. That scene is every bit as effective without the assault. It's unnecessary and it leaves a stain on each film he includes it in, which by my count has been pretty much all of them except for the Halloween sequel he did, and honestly, I'm probably missing something there too. Anyways, now that we are past this very unfortunate part of the movie, thankfully, she sees a vision of a man walking a goat approaching her before we cut back to Matthias, who's doing some research on the Lords via old dusty books. But first, the books tell the story of Margaret, who was burnt at the stake during the Salem witch trials, and uncoincidentally keeps appearing to Heidi as a ghost. He eventually finds the melody heard on that song, written out, and has his wife play it on the piano to confirm. We then cut to the radio show once again, where they announce they'll be selling tickets to a special Lords of Salem music festival, and once again play that song, causing Heidi to once again have some witchy visions. I legitimately wonder how much of this filming cycle was spent filming these creepy vision B-roll. We cut once again to Matthias, who through further research discovers Heidi is related to Reverend Hawthorne, who was the man who originally sentenced these Lords of Salem to burn. She stays the night at Herman S.'s place before having yet another vision of 3 faceless figures, removing some sort of shrieking creature from her stomach cesarean style. She wakes up back in her own apartment and breaks down in the bathroom before her painting starts bleeding. Whoa! I love how this movie makes it difficult to distinguish what is and isn't real, with things like the neon cross outside her work and the bleeding poster looking vaguely like the men she had just seen in her vision, causing you to think that perhaps these are all dreams she's having, and her mental health deteriorating is the real cause for the plot. Spoiler alert, it's not, it's witches. Regardless though, impressive visual subtext for a director so commonly regarded as lowbrow. Soon Heidi relapses and is back to doing drugs when her landlady and her friends, lead her into apartment 5. Inside is not to scale for this small apartment complex, as she opens the door to a luxurious ballroom, complete with a little meat baby. Oh, hi little meat baby. What the fuck? Bad meat baby! Heidi emerges again, and the witches, ladies, tuck her into bed. Matthias calls Heidi and tells her he needs to speak to her, planning to tell her about her connection to Reverend Hawthorne. She tells him to come by, but he's intercepted by the landlady and her friends first. They reveal their hand as witches when they prevent him from seeing her and bludgeon him repeatedly with a frying pan, all while Heidi listens through her floor. Herman arrives later and picks her up, and the movie comes to a sudden screeching halt as Heidi says bye and slips in through some door. The next 10 minutes, the ending of this movie, are a fever dream of demonic images I can barely talk about or show without risking a YouTube strike, but man is it a lot. The sequence ends with a shot of Heidi holding what I assume is the Antichrist she just birthed on a pile of nude corpses. The movie then concludes with a shot of Heidi playing with Troy as a clip from her radio show discusses the mass suicide which took place at the Lords of Salem festival and Heidi's whereabouts, as she's gone missing. I rate these on tension, kills, acting, plot, score, and direction. Not in that order. Let's go. The suspense and tension in this movie are actually fairly palpable, as some familiar genre tropes are reimagined or even just flipped outright on their head. It's not something I'm used to from Rob Zombie, but I thought it was an impressive effort. There's really only one kill in this with Matthias, which is effective but nothing great. There's also the burning witches, which, I've seen it before. That being said, this category is also where I usually rate just makeup effects in general, and the makeup effects throughout this are outstanding, so I've got to give it a little something. The actors in this all turn in memorable performances, dominated by a solid performance by Sherry Moon Zombie, and also you have to love Ken Foree, you just have to. The plot is fantastic, but a little bare bones for a feature-length film, so it ends up a little stretched thin. I think that's compensated with the creepy B-roll stuff, and as lengthy as those can be, they actually work for me. So I'll give another solid rating here. The score is pretty minimal in this movie, with the only real consistent sound being the music from the Lords, which I mean is used pretty well here. I'm not the biggest fan of Rob Zombie. I'll even go as far as to criticize his gratuitous use of sexual violence in his movies. On top of that, I do agree with a common criticism of his, which is how his movies often replace thoughtful direction with highly stylized movements and cuts. But this really is probably Rob Zombie's masterpiece as far as direction goes. Alright, so 43 out of 60 comes to about a 72, which adds up. This is a fun, unrelenting take on the supernatural and occult. And while it may not be everyone's speed, I personally love it. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I have a new series premiering soon called Another Grisly Chapter. And man, am I excited about it. I wanted a series that allowed me to dive into some horror franchises with 4 or more installments, and really seek out all the weird sequels I can find. I'm starting with Hatchet, and it was supposed to be released today when you're watching this, but that obviously didn't happen, so keep an eye out for it in the next few days. I rearranged my schedule so that I could focus more on that particular series, because I really want it to do well. It's going to be a lot of fun to do. Anyways, thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe, follow me on all the socials, all that good stuff. Oh, did you like my decorating? I thought they were going to be a lot longer and it didn't work out. But anyways, until next time, stay safe.